Didn't think I'd make a Genshin video so soon, but I was beckoned here by the call. Call of war. The only thing stronger than my love for war, some of you guys might know, is a dragon sovereign's love for crack. So imagine my surprise when out of nowhere, the big war yet to come is foreshadowed in an Arataki Ito event.
The war. I'm not sure we can give him the answer he would hope for. But if nothing else, I know that we must avoid another war at all costs. The people cannot be made to suffer like that again.
But what if the bigger war comes to pass? What then?
If it cannot be avoided, then I will have no choice but to fight.
Well, if that day comes, I'm sure that everyone here tonight will fight by your side.
And now, I won't lie, I'm a bit confused just because the reactions to this have been a bit confusing in that it seems like people were blissfully unaware that any kind of war was coming. So let me just quickly say war is coming to teyvat. We've known this since before the start of the game because Dane told us so.
The war has already begun. It is just a continuation of past battles. She is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any left for her. Her followers hope only to be on her side when the day of her rebellion against the divine comes at last.
Hell, even the other Archons know this. Zhongli wanted to see if Liyue could defend itself. Wonder why he wanted to do that now. Venti is still awake, is usually only awake when big things happen, and Nahida told Apep they won't repeat the same mistakes they've made in the past.
When you inevitably perish due to your ever-expanding curiosity, I will still sneer and mock you in my heart.
Sheesh! Who can put up with you? I respect your decision, and with time, I will prove to you that we will not repeat our mistakes.
There have been many great wars in teyvat's history. The Heavenly Principles versus the Sovereigns. The Heavenly Principles versus the Second Who Came. The Archon War, which was controlled by the Heavenly Principles. Notice the Heavenly Principles have a lot of experience. There's the, Conria's little, little thing, if we can even call that a war, given it seems like Conria was mostly fighting against the mistakes they made rather than directly attacking the heavens. Either that or they attacked the heavens and the forbidden knowledge they used just backfired on them immediately. But in any case, this upcoming war is the most interesting. Its soon-to-be belligerents are Celestia.
The arrogation of mankind ends now.
The Fatui.
In the name of Her Majesty the Tsarista, we will seize authority from the gods.
And the Abyss.
Until the Abyss has engulfed the thrones, my war with destiny will see no end.
And now I should point out, there are other players in this war, but who they align with from the earlier mentioned Big Three is unclear. Groups like the Hexen Circle, Sovereigns, Conria, who Dane says will defy this world with a power from beyond.
In the perpetual meantime of a sheltered eternity, most are content to live and not to dream. But in the hidden corners where the god's gaze does not fall, there are those who dream of dreaming. Some say a few are chosen and the rest are dregs. But I say we humans have our humanity. We will defy this world with a power from beyond.
And while, yes, some of these groups' goals overlap, ultimately it doesn't seem like there's a blossoming partnership to be had with a lot of them. Dane detests the island in the sky as much as the Abyss, but works actively to thwart the Abyss. Nervalet has claimed he will one day judge the usurper king, but given he's assured us his future actions will cause no harm to the common folk, and the Fatui, oh my fucking god, they love harming the common folk, I have a hard time believing he'll just blindly support them with a means justifying the ends kind of reasoning here, but who knows, crackheads don't keep their word. And now with that said, you may have noticed a lot of the ungrateful bastards have the same goal of overthrowing Celestia. They want to usurp the original usurper. However, there's a problem, because as it stands, the war is looking like this. The Fatui are out to defeat both Celestia and the Abyss for the sake of teyvat. I mean, despite no one fucking them asking them to. The Abyss are trying to defeat Celestia, but in the process will most likely destroy teyvat, while Celestia will also wind up fighting both the Fatui and the Abyss, but with varying levels of intensity. We'll get into that later. But let's do something first. Let's look at each side, see their reasons for fighting and what resources they have, and then we can pass judgments, because I'm not mad at the Fatui for wanting to start a war. Because hey, I'm a realist. You know, my favorite animal's a fucking hawk, right? Caw, caw, caw. You know, I'm here for it. I completely understand that. You know, sometimes war is just necessary. I get it, but you better have a damn good reason for starting one out of the blue. And look, I'm neutral in this whole thing, right? I don't serve anyone, but I mean, I'll use the Heavenly Principles as an example. The only time they've ever kick-started a war was eons ago versus the Sovereigns, and the point of that war was to create humanity. And look, I think we can all agree that's about as peak as it gets, right? Anyway, to start, let's examine the ones who will inevitably kickstart the fucking war. The Fatui, led by a disgruntled Archon whose desires are to burn away the old world. The Fatui follow the tsarista, who evidently was left so scarred by what she witnessed 500 years ago in the Cataclysm. She's since been building up forces to the point where she now has control over the strongest army in teyvat. This is all without mentioning the Harbingers, 8 extremely powerful beings, of which the top 3 can have power that rival the earthly gods, of which the first, Il Capitano, is said to be the strongest being in teyvat. However, their resources seemingly don't end there, because it seems like they'll have the backing of some of teyvat's strongest, as it now seems like that Raiden is set to join the fray following her most recent remarks. This is despite acknowledging the Fatui are the ones who manipulated the Shogun and kickstarted the civil war in her precious Inazuma that caused the suffering of her people. But we're not going to get into that. I mean, it was Dottore and Piero who infiltrated the furnace hundreds of years ago, but I mean, it was a scar a bunch of months. We don't have to get into that. The other Archon's positions towards the Fatui are far more hostile than Ei's ever were. Venti and Nahida haven't a clue what the tsarista is trying to do with the Gnosis, and they had theirs stolen by Harbingers, while Zhongli, giving his Gnosis up, came about as a result of a contract between himself and the tsarista, so their relationship at the very least seems a bit more amicable than whatever the fuck happened to Venti. Now, I do want to point out, so the biggest X factors here are Zhongli and Venti. Given of the ones who went through the Cataclysm, they are the ones who seem to be the least affected by a rather fucking significant margin. You know, they seem to understand the nuances of Celestia's actions, even if they don't like them or agree with them, and they certainly aren't as reactionary as the younger Archon. So what path they will ultimately follow is a bit up in the air. And for the record, could you just imagine Zhongli siding with Celestia? I mean, surely if you're Celestia, you got this nigga Zhongli under contract for like 10,000 years. If anything happens, you will fight for us. You bitch ass nigga. No trade clause, nothing. And with that said, I should point out another resource the Fatui have are the Gnosis. Whatever plan they're cooking up will no doubt involve all of the Gnosis, including the tsarista's own Cryo Gnosis. And while it's not really possible to say right now what she plans to do with them all, given the Gnosis were created to keep down the loathing and resentments of the world, presumably from the Sovereigns, or it could have just been the Sovereigns themselves, it could have something to do with them. So while the Fatui are extremely capable when it comes to resources, let's look at their resolve. What are their motives for the war? The tsarista's reasons are unknown, but she evidently thinks they're valid enough to sign on the Doctor. The other spearhead of the Fatui, Piero, is a Conrian survivor who's long lauded what he calls the absurd callousness, the foundational principles of this world, never minding the many atrocities the Fatui have committed. No wonder you call yourself a fucking clown. The Harbingers have even less resolve and legitimate reasons to fight than those two do. Dottore's here just because these are the only people who'd give him resources to experiment on little kids. A child just wants to fight. He doesn't care who he's fighting. He just wants to fight. Arlecchino killed the other knave, so she had to become the new one. Scar a bunch of months was just lied to. That's the only reason he's here. A soldier fighting without resolve, especially in this fight, is like a ship trying to sail without a compass. My friends, the Harbingers don't like one another.
Rosaline died in a foreign land. But you heartless businessmen and dignitaries always with a convenient excuse to remain in the comfort of your homeland. You couldn't hope to understand. So why don't you keep your mouths shut?
They don't respect one another.
Perhaps you find fighting in the abyss to be a more meaningful use of your time? Oh, but of course, even this pales in comparison to being experimented on by the doctor.
They want to kill one another. And I mean, hell, the 4th-ranked Harbinger said she'd raise her own weapon against her master, no problem.
If we are forced to be at odds one day, I will raise my weapon against her without hesitation.
They're broken. They're divided. They're selfish. They lack resolve, and thus they are weak. But hey, I can recognize greatness when I see it. Il Capitano is a man of great honor and respect. Capitano was the only one in this meeting of the fucking committee that was focused on the mission. You had one bitch singing on the coffin, you had Pocahontas fat ass existing, this nigga smiling like this at a funeral. Capitano's the only one. Hey, she dead, it is what it is. Hey, where the fuck is the Gnosis? That motherfucker's better hope he carries y'all, but there's an obvious weakness with Capitano. Capitano is said to be the strongest being in teyvat. However, in this war, you're not dealing with beings from teyvat. You expect this ragtag bunch of vigilantes on their first attempt to work in unison and put down the 2-time winners while also combating the power of the abyss? No. But that's the outlook for the Fatui, a troubling one, and worrying one indeed. Up next, we have the Abyss, or more specifically, the Abyss Order. Much of their operations remains a complete mystery. However, one thing is abundantly clear. They hate the Divine. And they don't just hate the island in the sky, they hate the Archons as well. They hate the Archons' people, they hate the Archons' lands, they hate everything the Archons stand for, and wants to bring ruin to them. This hate for the Divine stems from Conria. You see, they harbor deep grudges over failing in their plan to attack Celestia. After the failed rebellion, they rightfully paid the price for their sins and were turned into monsters, a form of exemplary punishment. You reject the world gifted to you by Celestia, then you shall now be rejected by the world gifted to you by Celestia. In any case, no matter how misplaced, hate is an extremely powerful motivator indeed. It's this shared hatred that leads to them being the most united group on this list. Yep, that's right, they are the most united. The highest ranking member of the Abyss Order that we know of is the Traveler's Twin, the Abyss's sibling, often referred to as a prince or princess. However, whether or not there's someone above them remains to be seen, but as it stands right now, their blessing is enough to set the plans of the Abyss into motion. The one who could be front and center of the Abyss, however, is the Sinner, an ominous crystal last seen a little under 500 years ago. Its existence is what brought about the Abyss Order, and its powers can weaken the curses of the Divine. It's also worth pointing out, so we've hardly seen what the Abyss is truly capable of. That other world is said to have monsters far beyond our comprehension. I mean, hell, the sole purpose of the Rift Wolves was simply to tear down the barriers between worlds so that the real motherfuckers could come in and do some damage. Like, for instance, take the monster that ate Chio. Something that would have looked like this according to its description. And they no doubt have even more powerful entities that will make an appearance should the barriers come down. The deadliest weapon the Abyss have, however, is no doubt forbidden knowledge. Crack for dragons, a form of knowledge originating from the depths. It corrupts everything it comes into contact with, people, gods, and sovereigns. However, given it can hardly be controlled, when unleashed, it will no doubt bring ruin to everything as it has in the past. It's simply the nuclear option. So that's the outlook on the Abyss. United, evil, corrupt, but powerful. And finally, seated at the zenith of the world is Celestia, controlled by the Heavenly Principles, a group whose love for humanity even impresses its worst enemies.
How far will a life so dear and precious to the Heavenly Principles be able to go?
This entire world is watched over and protected by them, beings who even the Archons refer to as a higher power. The Four Shades, our beloved sustainer of heavenly principles, and Phanes. You might have been expecting a different name. Sorry to disappoint, but before we can get there, I beseech thee, listen to what must be said. Please. I need you to do something first, okay? Cast aside the veil of misconception for Phanes, though we've often depicted as a dread entity of cosmic horror, Lovecraftian in nature, transcends such limited interpretations. It is above all else a deity of boundless love and benevolence for humanity, whose divine love for them knows no bounds. It is only happy when humans are happy. So in this regard, a more accurate title is Phanes, the gentle watcher of humanity's joy. This love, this sacred devotion propelled Phanes to vanquish the drug-addicted sovereigns and fashion teyvat anew for the benefits of us, humans. It's this love that spurred Phanes to rise valiantly in defense of teyvat when that bastard crackhead Dragon King Nibelung returned, souped up on forbidden knowledge, and nearly come face to face with the edge of oblivion. And mark my words, it is this very love that shall serve as a catalyst for Phanes' righteous retribution when the appointed hour arrives. But it won't be to smite the non-believers, however, for their disbelief is acceptable. No, Phanes shall wield its divine fury once more only against those who would dare to harm humanity, whose deeds stain the material realm fashioned by its and its shades, as the echoes of suffering sounds throughout the cosmos, and the abyss threatens to engulf the world once more. Phanes shall descend with the fervor of 1,000 suns, its love for humanity burning brighter than the very stars that adorn the heavens it's created. And yes, the rumors may be true. The heavenly hierarchy may currently be out of whack thanks to Istaroth's fuckery, but rest assured, when the time of reckoning descends, Phanes shall uphold what it knows to be true and just. Know this, the heavenly principles shall not strike first, but beware. For when aggression is met with defiance, it is then and only then that Phanes shall spread its wings once more, descend to teyvat with sword in hand, a sword that has slain countless foes, and it is then and only then it will reveal its true form. Phanes, the primordial one, a progenitor god, hailing from beyond the stars. And it is then, and only then, will teyvat find peace once more.